everyone, this is Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial for you and I'm going to show you how to make this really sweet little spring bird card with a little bluebird and the robin with an ink blended background and an embossed sentiment. And I'm going to be using stamps from the Color Me Happy set from Stampin' Up. I'm using the two birds and the Oh Hello sentiment. I'm going to be doing some ink blending with some Distress Oxide inks and also going to be coloring with Stampin' Blend's alcohol-based markers. So you're going to need a card base, and I chose sort of a kind of a pale teal color. I wanted something that was sort of in between blue and green that would sort of match both of the colors and kind of looked similar when you blended them together with how they looked. So this is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock that I've cut and scored and folded in half for my card base. I'm going to need a white sheet of paper that's 5 1/4 by 4. A little thin strip of black cardstock, and I have cut this to 1/4 of an inch and longer than I needed it because I'm going to trim it down once I get it embossed and see exactly where I'd like to place it. And then also just another sheet of white cardstock that's large enough to stamp the birds. So I am working on 110-pound cardstock for like the ink blending and alcohol-based markers. I really like the heavier weight of the 110-pound cardstock. So the first thing we're going to do is the ink blended background. So I'm going to take my piece of white cardstock and I've taken a sheet of Masking Magic. This is from ThermoWeb, and taken the largest size of Stampin' Up stitched shape circle dies. That's hard to say. Stitched shape circle dies. Took the largest one of those and just used a little bit of repositionable tape to kind of get it in the center of the masking paper. If you want to, if you're not comfortable with eyeballing it, you could, use a ruler and find the center. I die cut it and just removed a circle from the inside and set that aside. I can use that on other projects, and I've already pre-run that through my die cut machine. I'm going to take the paper off of the backing sheet, and you want to hang on to your backing sheet because you can clean your mask and use it over and over again. You just want to put it on your backing paper and store it until you're ready to use it again. So I'm just going to put my mask over top of my white cardstock, kind of get that centered. I want to make sure that there's not a lot of air bubbles, especially around that center circle. Just kind of smooth that out. And I'm going to bring over my craft sheet to work on. This is just a good slick surface that you can work on with the inks. And I'm using the blue broken china Distress Oxide and the green peeled paint Distress Oxide. I'm still new to using the Distress Oxide ink, so I'm by no means very proficient with it, but they're a lot of fun. I really like how pigmented the colors are. I'm using the Tim Holtz blending sponges, and I just have one for each color. And when you ink up your sponge, it looks like there's very little ink on the sponge itself, but there's actually a lot more than you would think. So kind of just a light tap. And you want to start off of the area that you're inking, and in just small, soft swirls, start blending and pulling that ink in. And so I wanted to sort of not exactly look like a sky and grass, but just sort of give the impression of sky and grass. So I wanted it a little bit darker at the top and kind of fading down a little bit. So I'm going to take the blue about 2/3 of the way down and just kind of keep blending that in until I kind of get a softer, lighter look at the bottom. And you want to be really careful with your fingers, because it's really easy to, because the mask won't absorb the ink, it's really easy to run your finger through. So if you do have a problem with that, you may want to, you know, hold it down with a paper towel while you're working on it. Because if you're anything like me, I tend to get my fingers all in the ink and then end up smudging that all over the place. So now I'm moving on to the green, and I've just turned it upside down just so, again, I can get a little bit of a darker color at the top and fading it in. You definitely want to get that nice blend between those colors, and because these have such nice pigmentation to them, they stay really dark and then nicely fade and blend in with each other. So I'm just kind of taking the sponge and kind of darkening that edge and getting it into a soft blend in the center. Blend that in just a little bit more, just to kind of get those two colors going in together. So it gives a little bit of impression of sky and grass. A little bit more green there that I wanted, so I'm going to go back over that with the blue. Just going to do a little bit more blending. There we go. So that's really pretty. I'm very happy with that. So we are done with the Distress Oxide inks. And now here comes the best part, is when you remove your mask and you have your really great inked image there in the center. And so to clean your mask, you can just take stamp cleaner and take a paper towel and just wipe that mask clean. And when it's all cleaned up, just put it back on your backing sheet and you can use it again later. So next we're going to stamp out our birds. And because I'm using alcohol-based markers, I'm going to be using Memento. I'm just using black Memento ink. As I've said a million times, it is my favorite black go-to ink. And I've just gotten my other piece of white cardstock. Just going to ink the birds up. And they don't need to be, you know, centered or any particular position or anything, because we are going to be cutting them out. I'll stamp my birds there. And the colors that I'm going to be using today are the light and the dark daffodil, light and dark cherry cobbler, the bronze, the light and dark pool party, and also the light slate gray. So I wanted to turn my birds into two sweet little spring birds. So this one is a robin and this one is a bluebird. So for the bluebird, I'm going to be giving him a yellow belly. So I'm just going to kind of make just a little bit of an arch right there where the natural part of his kind of chin and chest would begin. And I'm using the lightest of the daffodil and just coloring in the entire belly there. And then I'm going to take the darker color and add some shading and shadowing under the wing and the belly. And then I'm going to go back over with the lighter color and blend those two together. You could leave it like this. It's a little bit of a harsh line. That's one of the nice things about these markers, is that you go over everything again with the lighter color and it just blends that in, but you still have that nice shading and shadowing there. Then I'm also going to take the dark daffodil again, and I'm going to do the beaks on both birds and the feet on both birds. And then for the bluebird, on the body of the bird, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on his belly. I'm going to color the entire rest of the body with the light pool party ink. Kind of just follow along that little arch that I made there. And I'm going to go in with the darker and again add some shading some shadows, especially underneath where you would expect a shadow to be, and to be a little bit darker. Go around his face a little bit. Kind of follow some of those stamped lines. And then again, go over with the lighter ink and blend those two together. And you will hear that nice snap of the markers. So you want to make sure that you hear that when you put those on so that they don't dry out. You get that nice snap on there. So there's the little bluebird. I'm going to do the same thing with the robin. I'm going to take the lighter cherry cobbler, give him a little bit of a red chest there. And then grab the darker and again add some shading under the belly and the wing, and go back over and blend that out again. So it's really easy. It's just light all over, add some shading with the dark, and then light all over again. And you get that nice shadow effect. And now for the bronze, there is only one shade. It's part of the flesh tones, and so can't really do quite as much shading and shadowing with it as if you had two colors, but you can kind of go over the same area a couple of times with the same color, and you will get a little bit of a darker gradation of the color. So again, just kind of under the tail, around the head, and the wings. Like I said, it doesn't add quite as much, but you can get a little bit of a definition using the same color of marker, which is really nice. So now I'm going to, there's no die cut for these, so now I'm just going to take my scissors and cut them out the old-fashioned way, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have just taken my scissors and cut out both my little birds. I'm going to bring my inked panel over, and I'm going to add some foam tape squares to the back of both of my birds. Go ahead and adhere those onto the front of my card so that they're facing each other. And I wanted their tails to kind of hang off just a little bit, and for their feet to be kind of close to the edge of the green. I'm going to place my bluebird down first. Let's see where I'd like to place the other one. That's backing off the foam tape. Place my little robin down as well. And I didn't want them to look like they were just sort of floating into space, so I took the light smoky slate marker. I'm going to give them just a little bit of a shadow under their feet. So just kind of just scribble back and forth. It just helps give a little bit more realism, a little extra depth to the images there. So now I want to add my sentiment, and like I said, I've got a strip of cardstock that's about 1/4 of an inch. Make a little bit of room here, and I'm going to grab my stamp positioner and the Oh Hello stamp, and I'm going to line my piece of black up using the grid on the inside of the stamp positioner, and I have taken the foam out. I'm going to use those magnets, and like I said, this is longer than I need it to be because I'm going to trim it up, and the stamp is pretty straight on the rubber, so if I kind of line it up again, sort of using the grid and the paper, I'm going to lay that face down, bring the lid of my stamp positioner over, and get that lined up. And I'm going to take my powder tool and apply just a little bit of powder, or if you have an anti-static pad, to that. And I'm using just clear Versamark ink. And another nice thing, not only will this help line up your stamp, but because this is a fairly solid stamp, if you feel like you didn't get quite enough ink on there, you can stamp it out again if you need to. But that looks like pretty good coverage. And now I'm going to bring my tray over. This is my very well-used, well-loved tray. I think I've had this embossing tray for ages. And I'm just taking an Ultra Detail white embossing powder. This is just one that I picked up at Michael's. Lots of different companies carry it. I like the Ultra Fine. I think it just, helps with the details. I'm just tapping off the excess onto my tray, and I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to heat set that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have taken my heat tool and I have heated my sentiment. I'm just going to wipe that excess powder off, and I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to follow the line of the stamp, but leaving a little bit of a black edge. I'm just going to trim that off. You could do it in your paper trimmer as well if you'd like. I'm going to bring back my stamped piece, and I'm going to figure out where I would like the sentiment to be and add just a little bit of adhesive runner to that and lay my sentiment down where I would like it. And then just take my scissors and trim off the excess. And try and get that straight. Like that. I'm going to bring my card base over. I'm going to apply adhesive to the back of the main piece and adhere that to my card front. And center that on. So I have a little bit of a border. I'm going to take some glue dots. You could also just use a little liquid glue that has like a fine point to it. And some of these pretty pale teal sequins, and I'm not 100% sure where I got these. I'm pretty sure they actually came in a paper pumpkin kit that I got from Stampin' Up. So I'm just going to apply a few, they're so sticky, few glue dots around, take off the backings, and apply the sequins over top. Just adds just a nice little touch so that you don't have such a stark white background. And also too, if you have one of those jewel pickers or little tweezers or whatever, you could use those as well to pick them up. Oh, we got two stuck together. Alright, so I have applied some sequins, and there is my pretty inked background for some great spring bird cards. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Also, check out my channel. I have lots of other card tutorials, and I really appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you have a really happy spring. Thanks so much. This is Heather. Bye.